Well, here we have the Zenith H500 TransOceanic, very famous radio that Zenith made for a number of years. And the way to use it is there's a carrying handle on top. I don't recommend you use the carrying handle too much. There's always a possibility, given its age, it might detach from the cabinet if you're transporting it with a handle. So I always encourage folks, for any radio that has a handle, to refrain from using it. Just pick the radio up and carry it with your arms. You start by opening this little latch here on the bottom, and the lid folds up like this. Up on top, if you wish, there's a little detachable. You remove these two brass screws and you can take this unit off, and it acts as an antenna. I always prefer to use the rod antenna, which is over here. I think that gives a little bit better reception than taking this device off and placing it near a window. I think the rod antenna does just fine. But before we go too much further, let's plug it in. To do that, flip it around the back. You'll see there's a little hole in this back space. You just stick your finger in there, pull this back cabinet down. That reveals the chassis up here with the tubes. You can see the post for the rod antenna. And then down in this open space here is where you would put a battery pack if you were going to use it without AC power. You would actually connect it up to this old-fashioned battery connector. So those batteries are no longer available. So fortunately, Zenith made these as dual power source. You could use an AC cord, which is stored under here. And go ahead and close this up. And you want to make sure that when you close it up, you're not pinching the cord. There's a bit of a cutout in the lower part of the cabinet here, so you want to make sure that your cord is exiting this back door through that cutout and not pinching the cord. So we'll flip it around. Once again, open the latch. The antenna, the rod antenna, is over here. You just push down on it two or three times. They've always been finicky, both going in and out. So the antenna pops out. You can just raise it up, extend it up quite a bit here, and now we'll plug it in. And give it a test drive. Here's the on-off switch. Let's see, we're on the 2-meter band. This is a shortwave band.
If I recall the...
Now I'm operating this in my basement in the late afternoon hours with these fluorescent shop lights. It gets a lot of hum and static, but you want to try and avoid operating this around, or any antique radio where there's a lot of fluorescent lights. And no, shortwave reception is much better in the evening hours than during the daytime hours. So these are your band switches over here. Each one of these are shortwave bands. Some of the shortwave bands are no longer active. The FCC has sold off spectrum over the years and reallocated it to the cell phone companies. So not all of these may necessarily pull in reception. Some may pull in all kinds of noisy chatter that you generally get with shortwave that doesn't make any sense. And there's a limited amount of shortwave broadcasting these days compared to even a few years ago. And you'll also want to take note, when you press in one of these buttons to select a band, not all bands perform equally. Some do much better during the afternoon, some do much better in the early morning hours, and some do much better in the evening hours. Generally speaking, shortwave is much better during the evening hours, particularly the late evening hours, and generally very poor during the daytime hours. It also makes a big difference, as I said, to not be in a basement like I am now to demonstrate this, and not have a whole lot of overhead fluorescent lights on to generate a lot of noise and static. But let's flip it over here to BC. BC is the broadcast, also known as AM.
Good well studied master from Justice Jack.
What is the abundant life? When we think of that, I think of
So a lot of reception on AM, which is probably the best way to listen to the radio. And if it turns out that you're a real enthusiastic shortwave listener, I strongly recommend folks pick up a modern shortwave radio. It's kind of fun to do it every once in a while on these old radios, but if you really want to be a serious listener of shortwave, for $100 or so, you can easily find a modern transistor-based shortwave radio through Amazon or any number of places, and you'll get terrific shortwave reception compared to what you will with one of these old radios. So there it is.